And antagonist, what is an antagonist? It's a drug that interacts with a specific type of the receptors or other part of the effector mechanism to inhibit action of an agonist. Antagonist is a drug that interacts with a specific receptors or other part of the effector mechanism to inhibit the action of the agonist. Means the antagonist is the one which turns the opposite action to that of the agonist. So this agent devoid of intrinsic activity and does not provoke biological response itself upon binding to the receptor, but blocks or dampens agonist mediated response. So whenever you administer an antagonist, there will not be any biological response. That means it is going to block the action of the agonist. The ability of a drug or a muscle to oppose or resist the action or effect of the another drug is known as the antagonist. So opposite of that of the synergistic action. Here, this terminology antagonist is the one. It is going to act on the same receptor to that of the agonist, but the ultimate outcome action is blocked. Then there is a terminology known as the inverse agonist. So this is a substance which activates a receptor to produce an effect in the opposite direction to that of the well recognized agonist. Here the affinity of that particular drug will be 1, means full, this what you call as the substance, the affinity means the affection towards that receptor is highest, whereas the efficacy means the output action is less, -1 to 0. An inverse agonist is a compound that binds to and prevents constitutive receptor activity in the absence of the agonist. So the antagonists have no effect on the receptor activity usually. Antagonists do not have any activity, whereas the agonists will vary in their action. So most of the H1 and H2 receptor antagonists, means antihistamines, have shown to the inverse agonist. H1 receptor and these antagonists are the one which are going to produce the allergy, etc. Histamine, one type of the receptors, are present on various tissues. So whenever there is allergy, contraction and all those things will be elicited. Whereas H2 type of the receptors are only present on the gastric parietal cell. So H2 receptor antagonists are just like the example is cimetidine, ramatidine, famotidine, etc. Tidines, all the tidines are H2 receptor antagonists. So these are the most of these, nearly all these H1 and H2 receptor antagonists are shown to be inverse agonists. Whereas the ranitidine binds with H2 receptors and stop the gastric acid secretion is an example of inverse agonist. Means this is going to activate a receptor, but it will produce an effect in the opposite direction. So that's why it is known as the inverse agonist. So here in this picture you can see that the full agonist is going to elicit the action in the increasing direction. That's the 10, 20, 30, 40% response will be elicited, and the 100% or the tissue will express its 100% capacity with the highest concentration of the agonist. That's known as the full agonist. Whereas instead of doing that particular thing, in presence of an agonist, the response is totally reversed to that of the agonist. It's known as the inverse agonist. So this is going to very similar to that of an antagonist, but there is a small difference. We will see it later. So agonist, antagonist, another terminology is there, agonist, antagonist. So agonist, antagonist is an agent that acts simultaneously on a mixed group of the receptors with an agonist action on one side, whereas the antagonist action on the another side. So these terminologies will sometimes they'll be reflected in examinations also. Agonist antagonist is an agent which acts on certain, which stimulates certain category of the receptors, whereas it is going to act in the antagonistic manner in other receptors. That's known as the agonist antagonist. So agonist antagonist or mixed agonist, it's the another name for the agonist antagonist is also known as mixed antagonist, or antagonist is the drug which behaves as an agonist while under other conditions behave as antagonist. See, the same drug will stimulate the tissue, and at the same time it's going to nullify the action of the movement of the tissue. That's known as the agonist antagonist. The examples of this category are norepinephrine, and opioid activates kappa opioid receptors, but it blocks mu opioid receptors. So same drug is going to elicit the different actions on the same tissue. So it is going to act on the kappa opioid receptors, activates the response, whereas it blocks the mu opioid receptors. And another example is buprenorphine, another opioid, has partial agonistic action at the mu opioid receptor and antagonistic action as kappa opioid receptor. So this is the agonist and antagonistic action of a same drug. Here you can see the same response. Before the drug, it's a natural substance, then it's going to act on the receptor and normal activity will be elicited. Whereas this is an agonistic drug, and it's going to bind with that receptor and there will be enhanced cellular activity. Whereas in case of the antagonist, then there will not be any activity of the drug. And another terminology is there, super agonist. Super agonist is a type of the agonist that is capable of producing a maximal response greater than that of the endogenous agonist for a target receptor, and the efficacy is more than 100%. So efficacy means effect of the drug to elicit the response. If you take the example of the suppose there is a what you call as the goserelin is a super agonist of the gonadotropin releasing hormone, GnRH. GnRH is the hormone released by the anterior pituitary under the influence of the brain. So what happens whenever goserelin is given, then it produces the double action that of the endogenous GnRH. So it's also known as the GnRH analog. So it is a super agonist, means which produces higher the action to that of the endogenous ligand. That's known as the super agonist, means super, just like superstar. Superstar is the one who performs better than that of the other stars. Here also super agonist will perform more than that of the natural agonist or endogenous agonist.
Sir,
So is a drug.
sir,
Yeah.
super agonist case, the tissue will perform more than its capacity, sir.
Yeah, more than the capacity when compared to the endogenous agonist. Endogenous means suppose if say norepinephrine, or here they have taken the example of GnRH. GnRH is secreted from the what you call as the anterior pituitary under the influence of hypothalamus. GnRH, gonadotropin releasing hormone. It's going to act on certain tissues and releases FSH and LH. Whereas if you administer the goserelin, it is a GnRH analog. So it will elicit the double action to that of the endogenous agonist. Please see the endogenous agonist for the target receptors. You got the point?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Then co-agonist means a drug or other chemical that can combine with a receptor to produce a physiological reaction typical of a naturally occurring substance. Means co-agonist, just like co-star, superstar, co-star. Co-agonist is a drug or the chemical that can combine with that of a receptor to produce a physiological reaction typical of a naturally occurring substance. So co-agonist implies it is one of the other agonist working in the conjugation, means it is acting very similar to that of the endogenous ligand, and the response is very typical to that of the endogenous ligand. The calcium can also act as the co-agonist at the type of the inositol triphosphate receptor. So whenever you administer the calcium, then it will also elicit the response to that of the IP3 receptor stimulation. So IP3 agonist is given, then the cellular contraction will happen and the calcium will elicit the same response. So it is a co-agonist, co-star, just like co-star. And
So
inverse
what is the difference between coagonist and full agonist?
huh?
The difference between coagonist and full agonist.
Full agonist is the naturally occurring ligand. It elicits the maximum response of the tissue, whereas the co-agonist is the one which combines with the receptor to produce the physiological reaction to that of the endogenous ligand. Co-agonist means it is simultaneously acting with that of the naturally occurring endogenous ligand and elicits the similar type of the response. For example, inositol triphosphate is also going to act through the calcium channels, whereas the calcium, if you administer the calcium also, then calcium will be excluded out. Means it is doing the action very similar to that of the full agonist. What the point? Okay.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Then inverse agonist. So already I have explained this thing. It's a drug that binds to the same receptor. It is going to bind with the same receptor as an agonist, but induces a pharmacological response opposite to that of the agonist. So here inverse agonist means it is not the antagonist here. It is, see here, the molecular mechanism of action will be different to that of the antagonist is concerned. It cannot be called as the antagonist, but it will do the action of the antagonist. The neutral antagonist has no activity in the absence of the agonist or inverse agonist, but can block the activity of either of these things. Here the classical example is same. That's the H1 and H2 antihistaminics. They are also known as antagonists, antihistaminics, but they have been shown to have inverse agonists. There is a very marginal difference between the antagonist and inverse agonist. Here the H1 and H2 receptor, what you call as the opposite. There is a very marginal or small difference between this thing. Whereas it's a agonist, it's going to have all the mechanism of action to that of the agonist, but the action is reverse. Here in this chart, I think you will know it very better. Here you can see that of the log concentration, then the efficacy relative percent, what you call it. So, so here you can see that the various graphs are there. Then the example is, so many examples are given. Here, this one is the super agonist. Super agonist means a drug which has produced the double the response from that of the natural agonist, just like the goserelin and that of the GnRH, naturally occurring GnRH. So here you can see that super agonist more than the receptor, and here the full agonist is this one, means 100% response is obtained with that of the full agonist. Partial means It may be in between the 100 and 0 response, partial agonist. Then the silent agonist or antagonist means it is nullify the action, whereas the partial inverse agonist means it is going to initiate the response, but it's partial, not to the extent of 100% inhibition. Whereas this full inverse agonist means totally it's going to reverse the action of that of the tissue, especially it happens. So this explains the
Where is the co-agonist in this graph, sir?
co-agonist is not there because if it is written, it will overlap. No, it is acting. Co-agonist is the one which is going to act very in line of the endogenous ligand. So co-agonist means this may be co-agonist. This line you can say very similar to that of the endogenous ligand. And
Sir, is partial inverse agonist act as a partial inverse agonist blocks or it will just go and sit in the receptor?
no, here it is going to occupy certain part of the receptor, but the biochemical mechanisms will be different. Instead of eliciting the excitatory response, it's going to cause the inhibitory response. But the action is the molecular mechanism of actions will be different from that of the antagonist. So it is not, it cannot be called as the antagonist, but it is called as the partial agonist.
Okay, sir.
Examples already we have given. Okay, there are few terminologies are there. Then I think we will go. That's the down regulation. This is a terminology. That is the process by which a cell decreases the quality of a cellular component, such as receptor or protein, in response to external variable. Here, down regulation means decreased response of a tissue. But the thing is, here the receptor or its protein may be decreased. The quantity of the receptors or its proteins, or which are the part of the response, may be decreased. Down regulation of receptor is an important phenomenon in pharmacology that generally causes diminished drug action. Means whenever the drug is given continuously, the response is going to be decreased. The process of down regulation of receptor occurs when the tissues are continuously exposed to an agonist, causing their overactivation. So that's known as the down regulation. Means here a drug is going to act on the receptor continuously, and if you are administering the drug continuously, then the response is going to be decreased. Elevated levels of the hormone insulin. Suppose if you are administering the insulin to the diabetic patient, the blood trigger down regulation associated with insulin receptor. So initially the insulin, whenever you are administering to a diabetic patient, what happens is in the same dose, there will be certain decrease in the blood glucose level, but at the time prolongs, the action is decreased. This is known as the down regulation. Means after sometimes prolonged use of a agonist or the drug, the response of the receptor is going to decrease. That's known as the down regulation. Here you can see the down regulation, degradation of the receptor occurs in two ways. What happens? There is the type of the receptor itself is changed. The protein may be changed. One is the lysosomal degradation, occurs via lysosomes, and another one is the non-lysosomal degradation, occurs via proteosomes. So inside the body there are lysosomes. Inside the cell there are lysosomes. Then they will be degraded. Whereas the non-lysosomal degradation occurs via the proteosomes. It's also known as the ubiquitin, and we will see it detail. So here you can see that whenever a drug ligand binds to the membrane receptor, the receptor is going to be activated. Then what happens is then the cascade of events take place here. The receptors and ligands, they are going to be separated later. Then there is the activity of this receptor is going to reduce because of the certain materials inside the cell, just like lysosome or Golgi complex, then they are going to be degraded. So ultimately, the total action of the cell will be reduced. That's known as the down regulation of the receptor. Means, usual case in the first dose, the receptor will show its action to the maximum, whereas subsequently what happens, the receptor is going to show less response. It is due to the change in the intracellular activity. And upregulation is the opposite term to that of the downregulation. Then it is the process by which the body increases the number of receptor in a tissue. It's very opposite to that of the downregulation. In downregulation, the receptor activity is decreased, whereas in the upregulation, the response of the receptor is going to be increased. So this is usually seen when the receptor in a tissue are continuously deprived of their ligand for a prolonged period. So either by process of denervation of the tissues or the endogenous ligands or continuous use of the antagonist. Here what happens is continuously the ligand, means endogenous ligand, is absent there, then for a prolonged use, or the denervation, which is caused by the denervation. Whenever the nerve is removed, then there will not be any propagation of impulse and release of the endogenous ligand, and also continuous use of antagonist. In the both of these situations, there will be upregulation. So here what happens, an increase in the number of the receptor, total number of the receptors on the surface of the target cell will be increased. This will be, I think you can understand better by giving the example. So what happens is there will be an increase in the uterine oxytocin receptor in the third trimester of the pregnancy in the animals, promoting the concentration of the smooth muscles of the uterus. Means the oxytocin receptors are increased in the third semester of the what you call as the pregnancy, and even though you administer smaller quantity of the oxytocin, the what you call as the outcome response will be more. That's known as the upregulation of the receptor. Means small quantity, more response, whereas big quantity, less response is downregulation. Here you can see the blockade of dopamine 2 type of receptors in the brain causes upregulation of the receptor, and this upregulation may lead to, that's a disease known as upregulation. Means the receptor activity will be, suddenly it is going to be increased. That's known as, especially in case of tardive dyskinesia. So tardive dyskinesia is a disease. Here there are certain sites. So you should know whenever this what you call as the new terminology comes, you should know it. The tardive dyskinesia is characterized by involuntary or abnormal movement of the jaw, lips and tongue. Here you can see there is a abnormal movement of the jaw, lips and tongue. So the typical symptoms include facial grimacing or the sticking out of the tongue, sucking or fish-like movements of the mouth. So this is a neurological disorder due to the dopaminergic 2 type of the action. Here you can see that the upregulation means suddenly the activity of a receptor is going to be increased. That's known as the tardive dyskinesia. In this disease, the dopaminergic 2 activity will be increased. This is known as the upregulation effect. And many types. Then the another terminology is known as the tachyphylaxis. Is a rapid appearance of the progressive decrease in tissue response desensitization following repetitive administration of a drug over a short period of the time. Tachyphylaxis means the exhaustion of a tissue. Means Suddenly, if you administer rapid appearance of the progressive decrease in tissue response, desensitization, it is known as the tissue desensitization after repetitive administration of a drug over a short period. Ephedrine and meterminol are the examples of this particular tachyphylaxis. Both displace noradrenaline from storage vesicle. Whenever an impulse comes at the adrenergic nerve ending, the vesicles are the one which stores the neurotransmitter. They are going to be released, means they are exocytosed. Whereas this ephedrine and meterminol, they enter the what you call as the vesicles, and they will not do any action, and ultimately the tissue gets exhausted, and this is known as the tachyphylaxis and results from repetitive administration because noradrenaline is depleted from the said vesicles. Instead of the noradrenaline, the ephedrine will go there, and ephedrine is not going to act very similar to that of the noradrenaline, and hence the response is decreased progressively. That's known as the tachyphylaxis. So here you can see that tachyphylaxis, dose given repeatedly at a quicker succession than the response, here very fastly within a fraction of certain minutes. So initially the response will be very high, whereas in the second dose it is less. In third dose it's going to be decreased, and in the last dose there is no response at all, means the tissue is totally exhausted. That's known as the tachyphylaxis. Then another term known as the tolerance. This is a gradual decrease in the responsiveness or desensitization to a drug taking days, weeks to develop, whereas the tachyphylaxis very fast development of the resistance, whereas the tolerance is taking long time. Example, if a person is consuming the alcohol or sometimes it's opioid, so here after prolonged time, initially he may be taking 30 ml, a small peg. Later, so he will not get any what you call as the drunkenness even after 30 or 60 ml also. The dose may be increased. This is known as the tolerance. A gradual decrease in response is known as the tolerance. Faster decrease in the response is known as the tachyphylaxis. So this is due to the mechanism involved is the induction of hepatic microsomal enzymes, means they are going to, if more and more quantity of the cytochrome 450 enzymes, more and more metabolism will occur. That's why the tolerance will develop. Here, so in this chart we can compare tachyphylaxis develops very rapidly, whereas the tolerance develops very slowly. So the tachyphylaxis happens within few minutes, whereas the tolerance it takes days or months. The alcoholic patients, just remember the alcoholic patients, does not depend upon the dose. Tachyphylaxis is not dependent upon the dose, how much quantity is administered, whereas high dose of this particular alcohol may cause the tolerance. So in case of tachyphylaxis, effects not seen even when dose is increased. So if you are increasing the dose later also, there will not be responses seen. So whereas the effects will be reversed when dose is increased. Suppose a person taking 30 ml initially, one peg of alcohol, then if he increases the dose to 60 ml, double, then he will get the alcoholic experience, means depression. So the tachyphylaxis is not seen routinely in clinical practice, whereas this tolerance is very commonly seen in case of clinical practice. Maybe many tablets or the drugs and insulin, many times they get the tolerance. The example is Menomics and the opium barbiturates and ethanol, etc. They will going to cause this thing.